with the mortgage calculator. Today we're going to talk about staying motivated, and we'll wait just 1 minute here to jump on. I put the chat up on the screen, so feel free to drop a comment there in the chat as you tune in. Appreciate everybody tuning in nice and early. We'll give it just 1 moment. We are streaming this live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Music, and all of the other platforms. So thank you everybody for tuning in from the different platforms. We'll get started here in just a moment. As we go through the presentation here, feel free to keep dropping comments there, and you can drop any questions there that you have as well. So we'll wait just a moment here. Remember, we do this at 12 p.m. Eastern time every weekday, where we go through the front end of mortgages, more on the sales side and leads, talking to customers and getting deals. So it looks like we are live on all the different platforms, so we can get started. I'm going to take the chat off the screen, but feel free to keep dropping comments there. So welcome everyone. My name is Kyle Hershey. I am the COO of the Mortgage Calculator. Today is the Loan Officer Sales Training, and we're going to be talking about staying motivated. I don't have a bunch of slides here. We're going to keep it real simple, and we're going to go through some things. So staying motivated is not the easiest thing in sales or in this industry, period. It's definitely not easy in this period of time, right? This is the hardest time in the mortgage business in 30 years. I'm sure all of you have been reading these articles about what's going on in the industry, but we still need to stay motivated. It's difficult in this time, but it's still something that we need to do. So let's talk about staying motivated in this market. Now, the first thing I put here on my slide, this is the year of the winners. This year is what's going to determine who is going to be winning in 2024 and 2025. So really, we're so close to 2024 right now. We're really talking about who's going to be preparing in 2024 to be able to take off in 2025. Now, does that mean you're not going to close loans along the way in 2024? Of course you are, as long as you're putting in the work and doing the work, especially here at the Mortgage Calculator, where we have so many non-QM programs and so many investor programs and so many leads that we give you. You're going to be closing loans. But when you take a step back and look at the big picture here, this is what's going to set everybody up for late 2024 and 2025, when the rates start at least stop going up and maybe trend down a little bit. That's all it's going to take. When you have your pipeline full, it's only going to take a little bit of movement in the rates in the downward direction for your pipeline to start really coming alive. So the first thing here is this is the year of the winners. Notice the second bullet point I have here is that 40% of your competition will be gone in 2024. So what do I mean by that? This is actual statistic here. 40% of the current loan officers, current licensed loan officers, will quit the business by mid-2024. 40% of the people who you're currently competing with for business are going to be out of the business by mid-2024. So in the next 6-7 months, 40% of your competition is going to be gone. So what does that mean? That means as long as we're not gone, as long as we don't give up and we don't quit, we have 40% less competition for us to get the deals that are out there. So that's a huge opportunity. A lot of people may look at this as a negative thing, saying, wow, the business is so bad, everybody's going to be dropping out. Maybe that will be me too, or maybe I should do that too because everyone else is. Well, guess what? If you make it through that and you do not quit, you have a huge, huge advantage that 40% of your competition is going to be gone. This is an opportunity. A lot of people are going to look at this as a negative thing. I look at it as positive. It is an amazing opportunity. So while the rates might not be an amazing opportunity, right now, as we all know. It was obviously an amazing opportunity in, 2021, right? That was an amazing opportunity for loan officers, even new loan officers. I mean, you didn't need to know anything about mortgages to be able to close a loan back then. But now it's going to be the people who stay, the people who are learning, but also my next bullet point there is people that are filling up their pipeline while others are either quitting the business or they're quote unquote waiting it out. If you're saying, oh, it's a lot of work, I'm not going to do very much, or, I'm going to take a pause in the business until I can actually sell some of these rates that are out there, well, guess what? You're not going to be winning when the rates get a little bit better. Those of you who are taking this time right now to fill up your pipeline, to make the calls, to make the connections, to do the follow-ups, to make sure that when those rates move a little bit, just a tiny bit down, just start going down a tiny bit, it's going to trigger all kinds of business. I promise you, if you have that pipeline built up, not only are you going to make some sales along the way, not only are you going to get some investor deals along the way because investors don't stop buying properties, not only are you going to be able to get some purchases and pre-approvals along the way because guess what? People don't stop buying homes. No matter how high the rates get, people will still buy homes, maybe a little bit less, maybe they qualify for a little bit less. They're definitely not doing refinances, obviously, but as long as you work hard and work the system and work the leads, you will get some purchases along the way for, primary homes, and you'll definitely get some investor action along the way. But what it's going to do is just set you up for massive success. You are top of mind. You've built the relationships with these clients. You've been following up with them. A lot of them, you're going to be literally preparing with them, and they're going to talk to you and you're going to talk to them. Okay, I understand you're not ready now, but as soon as rates start to trend down, I'm going to get in touch with you so that we can pull the trigger on one of these programs, and we also don't know how long it's going to go down whenever the rates do tick down a little bit. Who knows with all this wacky economy stuff that's going on post COVID, they don't know necessarily exactly what's going to be happening with the economy, even once they cool inflation down. So my point here is that you have to spend this time filling up your pipeline. You can't spend this time waiting it out. You can't spend this time pausing the industry. You can't spend this time saying, oh, I'm going to get another job and totally forget about mortgages, right? So at the mortgage calculator, maybe you do have another job and you need to become a junior loan officer. That's fine, but do not stop calling. Do not stop putting in the work, because it's only the ones that are working right now that are going to be winning in late 2024, early 2025. You have to put in the work right now. There's so many loan officers out there right now that are not doing that work. So all we have to do to beat them is put in the work. So we have a couple things happening here. 40% of our competition is going to be gone. There's going to be another X amount of percentage of competition that's going to be quote unquote paused or waiting it out. And so how much competition do we really have here? Maybe 20% of the loan officers out there are really going to be our competition if we're the ones working. Probably only about 20% of the loan officers that are currently licensed right now are going to do what I'm talking about, which is keep, maybe even less, are the ones that are going to keep working, putting in the work, and set themselves up for massive success in, mid to late 2024, early 2025. That's what it's going to take from us. Now, as far as just staying motivated, in general, I would recommend to insert some daily motivational quotes into your life. I would recommend some motivational books as well, because that's what's going to keep you going through the hard times. We're going to be learning along the way. We're going to be, getting some self-motivation going, some help type stuff. And that's what's going to keep us going through this period of time where it's going to be more difficult to close deals than it typically is, or at least typically was, right? So I would definitely recommend some daily motivation. At the mortgage calculator, we have Coach Calvin. So top right hand corner of your CRM, you can just click the Calvin button and go to Coach Calvin, and you can ask questions. You could tell him to give you some motivational quotes for that day, or books to read, or whatever the case may be. So at the mortgage calculator, it's nice that we have Calvin there, and the Coach Calvin version is essentially there to motivate you, to help you get your promotion done. You can ask it to set up your social media campaigns, and it'll tell you what to post when, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So definitely at the mortgage calculator, make sure that you're taking advantage of the Coach Calvin, which is definitely on the more motivational side, the sales side, kind of on the topics that we talk about here on this training. So definitely use that. It's going to take some extra motivation to get through this time, right? It's going to take some extra work. It's going to take some extra, motivation, and we're going to need to insert that into our daily lives. So I want everybody to think about, is this what you're doing for the long term? Are you in it for the long term? Maybe you got your license when things were good and you thought you were just going to, make some money quick and stuff like that. That's great. But hopefully most of us on this training are in it for the long run. And if we're in it for the long run, we need to understand all of the experts are predicting, late 2024, early 2025 is when we're going to get some decent amount of easing on, obviously the rates, which is going to flood a lot of business back into this industry. If we are not prepared, if we're like those other 40% who quit and the other 40% who didn't take this time to put in the work because they got some other job and they just kept their license because hopefully it'll be easier to close loans someday, those are the people that all we have to do is make calls every day. I talk about this on so many of the sales trainings. Pick that number of calls to do and do it every single day. And I want you all to think about this. This is an amazing way to put it. If you pick that number of calls every day, 50 calls, 100 calls, 200 calls, 300 calls, whatever it is, and you do that every single day, you're already beating out 80% of loan officers that are out there right now. You're already in the top 20%. You might not have the production of the top 20% yet. Some of you will, some of you are senior loan officers on here and are already producing that type of production. But for those that aren't, we're going to eventually get to that top production because we're going to be putting in the work that the 20% are, as opposed to the 80%, which essentially breaks down to 40% are quitting. The other 40% are going to be kind of on pause, on hold, not putting in the work. So all we got to do, very simple, right? All of these things that we go over in the sales trainings, all of these motivations, these sales trainings and tactics, they're all simple. That's the common thread here. It's all simple. We all know what we have to do. It's just not necessarily easy to do it, but it's very simple. We all know that if we make 100 calls a day, we're going to close more loans. We all know that if we, you could put it in terms of another thing, right? If we, eat salads or whatever, we know that that's what's going to make us thin or in better shape or whatever the case may be. It might not be easy to do, but it's very simple. There's not all kinds of, crazy universe things going on that have to come together. I mean, it's very simple. You eat better and work out to get in better shape. You make more calls to make more sales. It's that simple, but it's just not necessarily easy. So we know what we got to do. All we have to do is do it, and we're already beating out 80% of the loan officers out there. So what does that really mean? That means when there is more business to be done, we're going to have much more business to do. But the real key is that we must fill up our pipeline right now. We must make the 100 calls a day or whatever that number is that you came up with. We must follow up with people. We must get new leads, right? At the mortgage calculator, we give you a ton of leads. And then you also should have your own leads going on. You should be working your sphere. Maybe you're getting leads from some other sources as well. You should be building those relationships with the realtors, right? That's one of the biggest things right now in this market is purchases, right? Obviously our investor stuff is great. And that's why, we're growing at the mortgage calculator as opposed to shrinking, is because we deal with a lot of investors. But one of the ways to really stay alive right now is to work with realtors that are going to give you referrals for purchases, because again, purchases are not going to stop. When families are ready to buy homes or whatever the case may be, they're going to still buy homes no matter what the rates are. Of course, they could get into a home now, 2 years later rates might come down a little bit, and then they might refinance, and that's good for you as well, right? Because you might get them into the home and then do your job well and make sure to ask for referrals and make sure to follow up with them to let them know that you're there for them and that you did a great job, and that you would that when it's time for them to refinance that they will let you know, and that you'd be able to do that for them. So great opportunity there. But how do you really get pre-approvals? You work with realtors hand in hand. So you have to build those relationships with those realtors. Now, we've talked about on some of the previous trainings the advantages we have at the mortgage calculator when talking to realtors, the fact that we can create deals. That was last week's training, right? Creating deals out of thin air, talking to them about the DSCR programs that we have, allowing them to understand that we can literally create deals that didn't exist before. And guess what? When you use that as the in, you can start to build that relationship. Eventually, that realtor, once they find out that you know what you're doing, that you have great programs, that you have great pricing, that you have this cool quoting system at the mortgage calculator where you include them on the quotes. Once they find all that out, they will also send you their regular purchase business, not just their investments and stuff. So that's one of the big keys here for staying motivated, staying relevant, staying alive, staying afloat, is to build those relationships with those realtor partners. We have a few sales trainings. If you go on our YouTube, we have multiple sales trainings. The Creating a Deal one. We also have one that's just based on working with realtors. We also have one called Strategic Partnerships, where realtors is one of the things we're talking about there. And I break down fully how to approach them and what your elevator pitch should be and all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't seen those yet, I would recommend that you check those out as well. So that is kind of the simple way to make sure that you stay in the game, is to work with realtors, because it's not as much. It's a little fewer and far between. The loan sizes aren't as big now because the rates are so high, but there are still people out there purchasing homes, and there always will be. So as long as we have a great network of realtors, we're going to get those referrals, and that is enough to keep us alive until 2025. The Mortgage Bankers Association had their conference, and their theme of the conference was stay alive until 25. So what are we going to do? We're going to build our pipeline all of 2024. So when 2025 hits and it's absolutely a whole new industry, when rates start trending down, we are going to be the ones on top. We are going to be part of that top 20% that never quit, that kept going, that stayed motivated, that stayed busy, and we're going to have more business than we can even deal with. I promise you, if you do those 100 calls a day, or those 200 calls a day, or whatever it is you set as your goal, and stick to it on a daily basis, I promise that if you do that and put in the work, by late next year, early 2025, you will have more business than you can possibly deal with, because 40% of the people left the business, and the other 40% basically stopped their business, and they're going to have to restart all over again. So if rates trend down in 2025, business starts picking up, those 40% of people that stayed in the business but didn't do anything are going to have to start that process all over again. And they won't be ready with a huge pipeline until 2026, right? So don't be one of those people. Make sure you take 2024 and put in that work. How can we do that? We can fill our pipeline and make those calls, consult people, A lot of people know what's going on with the rates. You can talk to people and consult them. We're loan officer consultants at the mortgage calculator, right? So we can talk to them and tell them what's going on in the market, talk to them about what their moves may be. A lot of investors are watching these dynamics closely and understand how the interest rates are going to go up and down, and understand that when you're talking to them, you can essentially plan out their course of action so that, again, whenever that time comes, you're ready to go, they're ready to go, you have follow-ups that you're doing with them, and you're both on the same page of, yeah, we talked about as soon as the rates start trending down, we're going to refi this, then we're going to go buy that, or whatever the case may be. So we're going to spend this time not only reaching out and building a pipeline, but planning with our clients, consulting them, planning on those next steps. That way, when the time comes, we are ready to go and we're just unloading all of this business. And of course, that's going to bring in all of this commission. So we need to fill our pipelines. And in order to do that, we need to make calls. There's no other way. We talk about this on the make calls training and all the trainings we do about calls. There's no other way to make sales in a sales business besides make calls. That's it. You make more calls, you'll do more business. So we're going to make calls all 2024. The rest of 2023 obviously is only two more months. But we're going to put in that work. And in order to do that, we probably need some daily motivation. So I would recommend all of you, get some quotes there, or, start reading some motivational books. Ask Coach Calvin, our AI at the mortgage calculator, for some daily quotes. You could ask Calvin for, just go on there and ask him every day, give me a motivational quote that applies to mortgages, right? And he has all kinds of quotes from all kinds of, famous motivational speakers and all that kind of stuff. So I would make sure that you get something like that on your brain every day. Let that get you motivated. Put in those calls that you have set for yourself. And let's build our pipelines all of 2023 and 2024. So just like the Mortgage Bankers Association said, stay alive till 25. We don't just want to stay alive. We want to put in the work so we can thrive, right? I don't want to just be alive in 2025. You want to thrive in 2025. And in order to do that, we have to put in the work all 2024. So I hope that puts everybody on the same page. Let's put in that work. If you haven't yet, set that amount of calls that you can do on a daily basis, and make sure that you're making those calls for the rest of 2023 and all of 2024. And I promise you, more business than you can even handle will start coming to you when the rates start to relax and the industry starts to come back to life. You will be right there to capitalize on it fully, while everyone else either quit the business or was inactive or was just not putting in the same amount of work that we are at the Mortgage Calculator. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, 12 p.m. Eastern, we do this every single weekday. So we'll be back here tomorrow with a new topic. I appreciate everybody coming in. We'll see you tomorrow for the Loan Officer Sales Training with the Mortgage Calculator.